Bye week in the books. It's time to play football again. Friday forecast time. Let's talk about Northwestern. But before we talk about the Wildcats, we got to talk about some news that kind of broke on Monday. Matt Rhule, sneaky with his injury updates, kind of slides them in at the end of a comment here and there. The good news is that Luke Reimer will be back and ready to go for the Blackshirt Saturday.
Yeah, the bye week came at a good time. Luke Reimer with the infection, and Matt Rhule called that a MRSA infection in his elbow. Took him out for a few weeks, but I think having that extra week has allowed Luke to get himself back, and that's big. I mean, this defense, as we know, is already playing at a high level. Luke Reimer is their best player when you look at the guys coming back. Also thought it was notable Matt Rhule just slipped in there that Heinrich Haarberg is the guy, and he's not making a big deal about it, but I don't think anyone's surprised either by that.
Right, I was going to say, that was a nugget that kind of came out of how do you deal with it now that Jeff Sims is 100%, but he just flat out said, yep, Heinrich is the guy, he's 3-1 as a starter. He didn't say that, I'm saying the 3-1 as a starter.
Well, there hasn't been a quarter. I mean, I grant the schedule's not been exactly the toughest, but there hasn't been a quarterback go 3-1 at Nebraska in a few years. So I think you've got to recognize that you can't undervalue winning. I don't care who they're playing, because Nebraska, as Matt Rhule said, has the longest streak of Power 5 teams not going to a bowl game. And Heinrich Haarberg might be the first guy to get them to that level here as we start to look ahead of these next 6 weeks.
I want to ask you about running backs, the situation there. Obviously, the guys have to hold on to the football, but who do you expect to be carrying the rock on Saturday?
I still think it's Anthony Grant. I think at his best, he is their best guy, and they're at home the next 2 weeks. I think that's going to help. They got Northwestern and Purdue. I don't look at them as elite defensive teams. So I do think there's an opportunity for Nebraska to run the ball very well at these next 2 weeks at home here before going on the road and playing a pretty good Michigan State defense.
Talking about wide receivers, he flat out said, Matt Rhule did, that Malachi Coleman is now a starter, and he also mentioned that Alex Bullock is starting to learn that he's a pretty darn good receiver, especially in clutch situations.
Well, you and I watched Alex in high school. He was Prep's best player on that team. He was the best defensive back, the best receiver. So anyone that watched him play, you knew it was like, what are the recruiters missing on this guy? Because his high school clips are always good. It's great to see him get the opportunity and take advantage of it, both him and his brother John. But yeah, Alex Bullock is a really good, solid, I call him a role player. I don't think he's a Big Ten difference maker, but he understands his job. He makes plays when the ball comes his way. Billy Kemp is the difference maker that they've got to get going more in this offense.
No doubt about it. On the other side of the football, the Husker defense have an opportunity this week against a Northwestern squad that is susceptible for pressure.
Yeah, you look at Northwestern, when they played Penn State, they gave up 45 quarterback pressures in one game. Going into that game, Penn State had 50 on the year. So a real opportunity for Nebraska's pass rush, no matter who the quarterback is. For the Wildcats, obviously they've had some injury situations there with their quarterback position, but they're coming off a bye, a win against Howard. So they'll come into Lincoln at 3-3. I think they're playing above serve right now. I don't know if most people thought they'd be 3-3.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, when we were in Indianapolis for Big Ten Football Media Days, we were just saying, man, are they going to get 2 wins or maybe not even 1? And now they're sitting at 3-3. Coach Braun over there at Northwestern has done a nice job keeping that ship afloat.
Yeah, and I don't know if he is the guy that's going to get the job there, and I don't know what type of coach they're going to look for, but he's got an opportunity here over the final 6 weeks. You know what the Big Ten West is right now. It's a great opportunity each Saturday you play. If you hold on to the football, play good defense, you got a chance to win any one of these games, and Nebraska's in that same boat.
We talked a lot on Monday about outside noise and about Matt Rhule saying his team needs to learn how to ignore the noise. How do they do that? Coming up with a huge game, and you look at the schedule before the season, and you don't really circle Northwestern, but this is arguably one of the biggest games of the season for Nebraska.
And I think the hardest thing about being at a place like Nebraska is you often want to skip steps. The passion of the fans, the excitement. You're like, let's start looking ahead to step 2, 3, 4 before you even get to step 2. And that's been the problem. At Nebraska, I've heard some former players say this. The problem now is when a young player makes a few plays, 25 media guys want to interview this young kid, and they anoint a guy before they've really truly done anything. And I think that's what Matt Rhule's trying to say. Hey, look, we haven't done anything. We're 3-3. Yeah, we've won 3 of our last 4, but it won't matter because you're going to remember what happens these final 6 weeks. And you look at all these opportunities, Purdue coming to Lincoln, back-to-back 2:30 games. It should be gorgeous weather for both Saturdays here in Lincoln. Then you got another game against Maryland at home, and then Iowa. I mean, there's so many home opportunities here, and even the road games going out to Michigan State and Wisconsin, they don't look near as daunting as they looked even a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, no doubt. A season-defining stretch here for the last 6 at home. It starts with Northwestern Saturday, 2:30 kick on the Big Ten Network.